Hello, welcome back to Dragonfly Engineering. So this week we're concluding the Microgroove molding project where we mold the parts shown here. And the previous two episodes were making the mold, and this week we're actually going to run the mold in the molding machine. Alright, so now we can load our mold into the molding machine. I stick this wooden board across there to help support the mold while I'm loading it so it doesn't fall out onto the floor. And then we got temperature isolator plate, which is compacted fiberglass mostly. Make sure you can see. Yeah, you can see. So I'm going to string this isolator plate onto the front of the mold, like so. There's not a whole lot of room for alignment, and then I've got these 3/8 bolts that I string through the A-platen side of the molding machine right here. I'm going to open this gate up. So this is a little tricky, but basically I've got to hold the mold up and tighten the screw on at the same time. So let's, you may not be able to see this part. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm tightening this screw on while I'm holding the mold up onto the platen side. And it's centering on the reference ring. Okay. So there we go. And basically we're drawing the mold up onto the platen. Alright, so this is the setup. You can see that's the top of our mold sitting in the reference ring in the back of the molding machine, and then we got the two bolts that are holding it against the A side of the molding machine, platen. And then over here, that is the nozzle that aligns with the input nozzle of the mold, that hole right there in the center, and squirts the plastic into the mold. So, that's it. And now I think what I'm going to do is probably do a semi-time lapse of setting up the rest of the molds. And heaters. We got the one heater. Right here. All right. So here comes the guy. Turn on the gear handler. We got a set mode. I'm going to bring the pipe forward. Normally you got to check to see that the ejector plate isn't going to hit, but there's nothing there to hit. So we will, oh, actually I got to put the insulator in this thing. And we got the bolt sticking through. There's work. All right, so I think we've got the mold pretty well set up. So I am going to load plastic and get the heaters going and continue to heat up the system oil. That's that sound, the motor sound you heard intermittently. So we'll turn it back on and I'll get some plastic and load her up. All right, so one of the things we got to do is purge out the old plastic that's in this molding machine. We're going to be using a COP plastic, which is this material right here. And currently I believe there's nylon in the molding machine. So what we have to do is, this is actually sacrificial plastic because I don't know what the traceability of this grade is, but it's good to just clean out old plastic that's already in the system with new plastic. And this grade is close enough to what we're actually going to be molding where it's acceptable. I'm almost certain it's the right stuff, but I can't prove that it's the right stuff. So what we're going to do now is open up the gate. So we'll drop some plastic in. And then here on the controller, you can see we're on the temperature page right now. So as soon as this little timer bar goes away and this blue bar turns green, which indicates the different heater zones. So here's the nozzle. This is the leading edge where the hot plastic squirts out. It's usually the hottest spot. And then this is the first heater bank, and there's several heater banks in that injection unit that I showed you earlier. So as soon as this guy heats up, we are good. And then over here is a water cooling jacket. So there's also water that keeps the back of the nozzle cold so that the plastic doesn't start melting in the hopper. So in about 14 seconds, we can start to purge out the plastic. And it's basically the machine will back its nozzle out and start cycling plastic through its injection unit. So let's do that now. We go to the nozzle page, and then we're going to hit this button here, which is the purge button, and I'm going to hit start. I hope. Oh, I got to turn the pump motor on. Get into manual mode and then hit the start button. We'll double check our temperatures. Yep. So you can see how the molding machine is backing the nozzle up with this depiction here, and now it's going to squirt all the plastic out. And you'll see some smoke rising in the background. That's just old plastic. And this process will happen a few times. We're going to do it a lot actually because it generally takes a while to clean out a different resin in your molding machine. So I'm going to hit purge again, hit start. I'm going to open up the back door so we can ventilate. All right, I'm starting to smell the correct plastic. So what I'm going to do is open up this little protective door and drop the heater in the back. And then here's the plastic that came out. We'll do this a few more times. So I'm going to pull this hopper off again and then get it ready to stick the new stuff in. I'll hit the purge again. All right, so we're back. Get this guy back on. I'll just keep hitting this guy because there's still plastic down in the injection unit that we want to clean out. And then this guy is still closed, so I can go ahead and load our new plastic. Now the next thing is I want to load a nitrogen purge into the hopper. This plastic is similar, or it was actually the same plastic as the last mold that we ran, where we need to get all the oxygen out of the hopper so that the plastic doesn't turn a kind of a burnt amber look. So let me get that hose going. I got a nitrogen bottle in this room over here. All right, so this hose right here has dry nitrogen blowing out of it, just a little bit. Maybe you can hear it in my microphone. So I'm gonna stick this guy in here, get the hose as far down to the bottom of the hopper as possible. Where is that lid? Oh, here it is. I'm gonna clean out the purge plastic that's in here, making sure not to touch it with my hands, because it'll burn you good. I usually just throw it down on the floor. But if it stinks, then I'll take it outside and throw it in the dumpster, or run cold water over it to cool it off. Let's see what our shot size is going to be. 10 millimeters, so 10 millimeters is the distance the auger pulls back. Our shot size is 10 millimeters, so when I hit the auger rotate button, which is this guy right here, with the pump on, this depiction of the screw auger is going to move back 10 inches while it spins and loads fresh plastic into its front. So let's do that. And right now we're kind of refilling from the purge, so it'll sound a little crunchy. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and push this out, and we'll do that again. Ooh, got a little squeaky. One more time. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is check that there's no plastic obstructing the nozzle, and let's try shooting our first part. I'm going to hit the semi-automatic button and the cycle start button. It looks like the mold safety pressure needs to be increased a little bit. Let me hit manual mode. So the molding machine, this mold's a little tight since it's new. So I need to increase the clamp pressure because it's sensing that it thinks maybe something's stuck between the mold. So we'll do 470 and 470. Now I hit semi-automatic mode and we'll see if it clamps up. No, not yet. You know what? I taught the mold position or the height of the mold when the mold was closed. I mean, when the mold was at room temperature, but now it's up to temperature. So let me go ahead and we'll go to teach mode. I will bring the mold in, and then I will reteach its zero position or its closed position. There, I just taught it. So now let me back out the mold, and then I'll manually, in manual mode, close the mold and see if it locks up. And it does. So I think basically the mold grew when it heated up, and the molding machine was able to sense that the mold is bigger now than it should be, so it stopped. It didn't allow it to clamp up until I taught the new hot mold height. So this machine is actually pretty accurate on measuring distance. All right, so let's try shooting our first part now. And that's the auger moving forward, and then we're injecting and we went to zero, so we did a full shot. So we may have to add more plastic. Okay. So the part's stuck on the A side. I don't know if you can see that. And it's got all the usual first shot kind of oily mess on it. But what I need to do next is cut an undercut into the sprue puller. So this is a process that I do basically for every new mold, and you want to balance the retention force of the part so that it comes out at the right point. But that actually popped out real easy. So here's our first funky part with all of the machining oil on it and everything. But actually that doesn't look bad at all. And the part actually popped out very easily. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probably just put a couple detents in the runner on the B side. and we'll see if that fixes the problem. I have a center punch, you know, for punching a hole for drilling. Here it is. This may be all we need to do. Let me switch sides here so you can see what I'm up to, because we're real close. So I am going to basically put a little undercut with this spring-loaded center, like that. And actually, I'm going to hit the emergency stop button. It's a good practice when you're messing between a mold with your hands to not allow the molding machine to crush your hand. So I put another detent there. Maybe I'll just add a couple more detents on the main sprue itself, because I don't want to mess around with the runners if I don't have to. Okay, so those little dents create an undercut. So those dents fill with plastic and it retains the sprue, and the idea is that the B side pulls the sprue and the part off of the A side. So let's see if that actually worked. I gotta turn everything back on since I hit the emergency stop button. And in general, the emergency stop button is your friend, so you should not resist hitting it. It should be normal practice for you to hit the emergency stop. So when you really need to hit it, you're gonna hit it instead of try to figure out what to do. All right, we will do another shot. Let's see what happens. We're in semi-automatic mode. Okay, now we have 1.3 millimeters of plastic remaining, which is a good sign. That means we filled the mold and we were compressing the plastic, but we didn't run out of plastic to basically push into the mold. There we go. So our sprue puller worked and our part ejected. So that's a really good sign. So it may be amazing, but the second part, we may be able to go to fully automatic mode. So let me hit the fully automatic mode and start. Yeah, our sprue puller is holding and ejecting, and then we go and do the next shot. Well, there you have it. I actually I loaded this mold upside down because the cavity is below the sprue, and sometimes in molding you draw a little string of plastic out, like that one there. I don't know if you see it or not. But then if the part doesn't fall, then you've got a little plastic string going across your mold cavity, and you wind up smashing that string into your parting surface of your mold and damaging the parting line. So I probably will have to flip this mold around or be very careful with the string to make sure that I don't damage the mold by pinching that little string in. Because the molding machine is pretty accurate on sensing obstacles, but it can't really react to a 100 micron filament of plastic. So I'm going to be ready on the stop button if I see that one of these parts is hung up on the little filament string that's drawn out. I'll show you one of the parts coming out in a second, but we want to get the process dialed in and happy before we start looking at parts. Because if we've done any damage, the damage is done. There we go. Let me give you a better view. Yeah, I may need slightly more travel on the ejector too. But it's nice to see that it's running in full automatic after the second part, basically. Oh, actually, it's not filling all the way. I think I need to increase the pressure. I'm looking at well, I can show you the part here. So this is the first part. I don't know if you can see it. Whoop. Well, let's see this guy eject. Uh-oh. Okay, well that one didn't come out. So, so much for being overly optimistic. So I hit the manual button when that part didn't fall out. So now we're going to open the mold up and I'm going to eject forward. We're going to figure out why it's not wanting to come out. Anyway, but the other part I was telling you about, you can see how it's not completely defined on the back. So I probably need to increase injection pressure or something. There you go. You can see on the back there's kind of like this hook. I think that hook is starting to work. So I'll have to do, oh, and the part is not fully defined either. It's kind of hard to focus here. I may have to go in the microscope and show you. But you can see how there is basically a ragged edge there. It should be a nice square edge. So I've got to do a little bit of process development to figure out what to do about all this, and I'll be back in a second. I think we'll tackle the two problems separately. The first is to get a full fill. So I am going to, over here on the control, I think the first thing we need to do is increase the shot size to like 14, where right now it's 10 millimeters. And I am also going to increase the velocity of injection to 50%. So this page defines how the plastic just is shuttled into the mold. So its velocity and pressure. We'll increase the pressure to 2,000. And then this page here defines the packing. So once the plastic's in the mold, the auger or the injection ram is actually compressing the plastic and pressurizing the mold cavity. So it looks like we need to increase our mold pressure. And I think the time doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and, again, we're going to be trying to optimize filling the mold, and then we're going to run it. So let's go ahead and try this. Okay, now we got 5.2 millimeters of cushion, which is the amount of plastic left in the shot that the machine uses to push on to pressurize the mold. And now we're going to open up and okay, there we ejected again. You should be able to see that the back has filled out. So we're fully packing our mold now, but we're not really flashing out anywhere, which is, sorry about the, there we go. But we're not really flashing anywhere, so I think we've got a good profile. So now the thing to do, I'll check it under the microscope, but now what we want to do is really optimize the ejection of the part. So let's go ahead and hit the button again. And a lot of times when you make changes, you need to run a dozen parts to really start to see the effect if you're making minor changes. But that was a pretty big change that we made, but it looks good. Yeah, it's not going to eject. All right, so I'm going to go to manual mode, ejector forward. Yeah, and our ejection forward is at full travel right now, which is unfortunate. Let's see what we... Okay, let's try again. Yeah, it just wants to go. I think I just need to do a minor update on that ejector. We're still in semi-automatic mode. Yeah. I guess I could increase the velocity of ejecting. We'll do 50%, really try to launch it out of there. And we'll increase the travel to 9.5, even though I think we're close to the maximum travel that the mold will allow. I reduced the pressure for ejecting forward as well. So this is, oh, yeah, I couldn't make it. It's trying to push farther than it can. So I'll tell it 9.3, and I'm in manual mode, so let's back off, eject forward. Yeah, it's just getting hung up in that little, there it goes. Another thing, it's already doing 4 ejections, so that's, All right, I may have to make a slightly longer ejector pin in the middle, the sprue ejector pin. But let me get a triangular file out and see if I can do some magic. Yeah, with 4 cycles it'll do it. Okay, I'm gonna hit manual and eject forward. I don't even think I can get a file in there right now. All right, so I'll stop the pump. Let me see what I can do. I'm gonna take some of the grab off of this thing. Of course, when you do this, you gotta clean all your little metal particles out. So running several more parts will do that too. Okay, I'll turn the pump back on now that my hands are out of there. And let's try another shot. You saw the molding machine pulled the ejector plate back automatically. Okay. I'm gonna try fully automatic mode. There we go. Yeah, it's real touchy. I think after this first trial, I'm gonna have to go and make the sprue ejector pin, the 3/16 center pin that's in line with the sprue, like 3 millimeters longer maybe. Well, it's ejecting, but you need to be able to have this thing work for, thousands of times without it having a single hang up. And it doesn't look like it's gonna repeat 1,000 times ejecting without the part hanging up somewhere. I think filing on that sprue holder may have fixed the problem as well. But we'll see how we're doing. Basically, you gotta stand here and watch for, 100 parts to get a good warm fuzzy that your mold is running automatically. But yeah, that looks good. It ejected on the second ejection attempt. And we're doing 4 just to be safe. So I think we are good. There we go. Success. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.